from WrestlingSheet.com.
What's up, guys? Ryan Satin here, and I am with the one, the only PJ Black. We're heading to G1 Supercard. It's a few days away, and I brought him here into the studio to talk to him about all sorts of things, not just G1 Supercard. In fact, we were talking right before about how much of a foodie you are.
Yeah.
So you're a big. It's funny. I was talking to Ryback, who I do a show with as well, and he was telling me that you're big into keto. So you're into keto cooking as well. It's like a whole
Keto. So I used to be a chef, like way before my wrestling career, and yeah, I just got into keto recently. Keto and intermittent fasting. That's a powerful tool when you combine those. Like, this is the leanest I've ever been in my life. I'm completely drug free too, which a lot of people think I'm not. Like, drug and alcohol free too for the last 3 years. So I'm very, very excited about that.
That's
but
great.
yeah. Keto cooking. I love cooking. I love. I have a sweet tooth, so I make keto desserts. So like low sugar, like no sugar, high fat, which is fantastic. I kind of like this way of eating. I made a keto cheesecake for my birthday, and I ate the whole thing. It was awesome.
Yeah, my girlfriend, she's trying to kind of get into a fit lifestyle, and so she's looking at different things, and keto is one of the things that she was kind of inching towards. But then Ryback was super anti-keto. He was like, don't do it.
He is, because of his blood type. So I've looked into this stuff too, and I got to give him some tips on that too. It's very hard to do if you're not very knowledgeable of macros, like of just basic nutrition. Like, a lot of people try to get into it because it's like the new craze, and it does work. It 100% works. Like, me being shredded now, like that's a bonus. Like, my favorite thing, and the reason I do it is for like brain health. Like, my memory is so much better, my cognitive function, like everything is just so much better.
So wait, so I have a question. You mentioned being totally clean now, but I know you had that injury recently.
Yep.
When you were dealing with that, were you not using any like pain pills or anything like that during that?
So that's where the journey started for me.
Okay.
So I was in hospital for 6 months. I broke both my legs, base jumping twice. It took me about 10 months to be weight bearing again. I had to relearn how to walk, relearn how to run, jump, everything. Doctors told me I'll never wrestle again, but that's where my journey started. I lost a lot of friends to opiates, and they gave me a handful of pills in the hospital, and I was like, I don't want to take this. I know I'm going to get hooked on this. I know what it's done to my friends. So I kind of like started looking into alternative medicine, holistic medicine, like CBD, THC, like, a bunch of other stuff. And then I also tried a bunch of different things for my healing. I tried the hyperbaric chambers, the oxygen chambers, the flotation tanks. I had stem cells. I still do cryo till this day, like a bunch of different things, which I'm eventually gonna finish editing this documentary and put it on my YouTube page of my whole recovery process. But anyway, all those things, like, the only thing that worked for me was meditation. And that's how I became on this, like, I guess, on this spiritual journey. And like, yeah, no, and ever since that day, no alcohol, no drugs, maybe CBD and a little bit of THC, which
But that's not really like a drug.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially it's like legal out here and
exactly.
stuff.
It can be used as it, I guess, but for me, it was a healing mechanism.
Well, but CBD doesn't get you like stoned like some people might think. I mean, CBD is strictly just to help the pain and stuff like that. So I mean, yeah, I don't consider that one a drug. So that still makes sense.
It doesn't make you high at all. It's non-psychoactive. And
so then you filmed the whole thing, like your whole recovery.
I filmed my whole recovery, like the whole recovery. I have some shots of me in the accident.
Really? Like you were filmed, like you had like kind of like the
GoPro.
GoPro.
The only thing that I don't have footage of is the actual surgery on the day, because I had to get surgery on the day. They put steel plates in my leg. I have titanium plates in my leg, 27 screws in there. I often joke, I'm like, yo, my finish should be the insecurity. Remember like how Lex Luger used to have the forearm? But yeah, I'll edit some other footage in there, I guess.
So have you ever showed anyone that footage of you getting into that accident? Because that's gnarly.
I know. No, not at all.
Have you gone back and watched it?
Yeah, and it's kind of scary.
Is it hard to do that?
It is hard, but like, I've learned so much from that. Like, it was the worst thing that happened to me in my life, but it was also the best thing that happened to me in my life, because if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be mentally and physically as strong as I am right now. Like, that put me on this path, like this holistic path where I started meditating. I learned how to meditate and stuff like that, and that's changed my life like forever. And I'll be forever grateful for that accident, because it put me on this path.
So the meditation helps in terms of just kind of like overall peace, you think?
Everything. It helps me with peace. It helps me with, like, if I ever have a problem with anything, it's when I was younger, it was kind of like hard for me to grasp too, because like we all know that we have to meditate and we hear this all the time, but like now there's actually science backing up like how it works and how important it is, and like there's like those brain scans that actually show you exactly like it actually works.
That's crazy. No, I haven't. See, it's funny. You know, my whole life, I was kind of one of those people kind of like, like self-care, I don't need self-care type thing, you know? And I really think it was like watching that Queer Eye for the Straight Guy show recently, which is a weird thing to be inspired by, I guess, but they're so all about self-care on that show. I don't know if you've watched it, but there's self-care. They're all about it. And it really made me think about how important that kind of stuff really can be in terms of like, if you stop caring about yourself and putting in the time to be at 100%, how it really will drag you down.
Yeah, 100%. And it's people always ask me, like on Instagram, constantly, people ask me daily, like, hey, how do I get into it? How does this work? And it's kind of hard to explain because no one knows where to start, because no one teaches us this stuff at school. Like, no one talks about this stuff. And that's what I want to do. I actually want to teach kids. I want to write a kid's book and trying to inspire kids and trying to teach people how to meditate. And meditation is very easy. There's multiple forms of meditation. It's like working out. You go to the gym. Whatever your goals are, like, are you trying to lose weight, trying to build muscle? Are you just trying to work on your VO2 max, your lungs? You're trying to get fitter? Meditation is the same way, and it's not hard. People think like you have to sit there and go and clear your mind. It doesn't work like that. It's like all you have to do is just be peaceful. You can do it by breathing exercises. Going to the gym is a form of meditation. It's infinite. There's infinite forms of meditation, and like you just have to find what you want to get out of it, what you want to achieve, and then just go from there.
So take me back a little bit, relearning how to walk. How does that, like, I watched you walk in your legs. I know they're bionic at this point, but like, you know, that's got to be a hard thing. I mean, seeing you walk around, you wouldn't think that you had a doctor tell you that you weren't going to be able to do wrestling in the future or anything like that. How does that process even go?
Dude, man, it was like trying to learn how to walk. When after like 10 months, I was like, okay, I can get some weight bearing, but trying to put any weight on my leg was impossible. It
like
hurt.
You'd straight fall down?
It hurt so bad. I would fall down, like all my muscles completely atrophied, so there was nothing there. I tried to give my first steps in a swimming pool, so there's obviously different weight, you know, like took off all the weight. And I gave my first steps in the swimming pool, and I did that for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I tried to strengthen the muscles, trying to get the mobility back into the joint. And like after about a month or two, it felt like it was never going to happen. And then, you know, like once I started seeing a little bit of progress, and then I jumped from physio to physio, and like I even went back to South Africa for like 2 months where I didn't talk to anyone, switch off my phone, and just focus on recovery, like meditation, and then actually physical stretching, strengthening the joints, the muscles, and everything. And you know, physically, obviously it was hard, but mentally it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
That sounds, the mental part is, I think, the part that I would fear the most in that scenario. You know, I remember when I was younger, I had to have surgery on my vocal cords, and I couldn't talk for, I want to say a month, maybe a little longer.
Yeah.
And like, physically is whatever, but the mental of not being able to like talk to people and express myself, especially being a loud talker person, was tough. So I can't imagine just the mental of, I might not walk again. Like, that's crazy, you know?
I know. And I mean, the walking wasn't so much a problem. I was just like, I'm never going to wrestle again. Like, this is my passion. This is what I've always wanted to do ever since I was a little kid, you know? Like, I was like, I mean, I do have a degree and stuff, but I was like, I cannot imagine doing anything else. Like, I cannot imagine like having a normal job ever. Like, for me, it's like, what am I going to do? Like, that was tough. It was really, really, really hard.
Did you think that you weren't going to be able to wrestle again when the doctor said that? Or were you pretty in your mind, were you like, I'm not letting that happen?
In the back of my mind, I was like, man, this is a possibility. But like right there, I was like, I'm going to prove these doctors wrong. I'm going to, you know, like you hear this all the time. Like, and the doctor that actually inspired me to meditate, Dr. Joe Dispenza, I've read all his books. He's fantastic. He actually broke his back, and he legit just healed himself by meditation. He refused to have any of the surgeries, and it's very inspiring. Like, if you guys can check out Dr. Joe Dispenza, the book, if you want to learn how to meditate or anything, or how powerful the mind actually is. Like, that changed my life, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing.
That's wild. Yeah, my brother passed away, but he was a professional he worked for professional snowboarding companies, and he broke his back snowboarding while he was filming, because he was a cinematographer for them. And he got, you know, I probably shouldn't say, he got hooked on pills for a while too, and it was the exact same scenario where he broke his back, and they were like, here's a handful of pills, you know, and that really like led him down a dark path. So I'm really happy to hear that like you were able to stop yourself at that point, because a lot of people, that is like the part where everything goes downhill because they let it. And that's really cool that you didn't let it become the thing that defined you. Instead, you let it become the thing that changed you for the better.
Right, and like I said to you, like I've lost so many friends in wrestling. I mean, how many guys have we lost to that, and how many people do we know that's hooked on that stuff? And that, it's a problem in this country. Like the medical system is kind of flawed, but like, I mean, it's not much better anywhere else. But.
No, it's, man, the amount of people addicted to pain pills. I mean, I'm from around here, so I only have around here to base it off of, but it's crazy. When that happened, I remember looking into it more and seeing how much of like a real epidemic it's become.
Oh yeah,
just from pain pills, And
especially in like wrestling, like in any contact sports. I mean, I'm sure it's the same in NFL and in NHL and stuff like that. Like, like people they want pain pills or something to take the pain away, and you take that, and then you need something else for that day, and you need something else to wake yourself up the next morning because you can't wake up, and it's just like it just pulls yourself into that dark hole, Like
that's why I'm happy to see weed getting legalized in more and more places, because I mean, I know not every wrestler is a stoner or anything like that, but that is much better for pain management, in my opinion, than pills. So okay, G1 Supercard is coming out, but before that, you have a match on Sunday against Kenny King.
Yep.
You pumped about that?
Super pumped. I mean, huge fan of Kenny King. I think we can tear it up. My last few matches in ROH have been fantastic. Some of my favorite matches I've had in my life, which is awesome. Like I feel good. Like I'm almost 40, and like a kid comes up to me the other day. He's like, I did an interview online. And he's like, so your career is coming to an end. Who would you want your last match to be? And I was like, wait a minute, hang on. Like I think I'm 5 years away from my prime, kid. Like, first of all, like let's get this straight. And I do feel better now than I've ever felt in my life. Maybe it's because I'm mentally stronger than ever. Like physically, I'm getting there. Spiritually, I'm definitely there. So, like as long as my body can last, I'm gonna, like.
Well, you got the bionic legs now. I mean, you might as well.
Got some new muscles. Like,
yeah, it's crazy. The age thing. Like, I feel like people are ready to write wrestlers off real young.
Right.
Like 40 isn't. And maybe it's because I'm like getting closer to like getting up there in my 30s, but like 40 isn't that old in my opinion,
Well, it depends who you are. It depends how well you take care of yourself. Obviously, it depends on genetics and it depends on a lot of things. So that's another reason I didn't want to do the drugs when I stopped drinking, like at all. Like I don't even have one beer or anything like that a while ago. My dad was a wrestler, and he said he did his best work between 42 and 45. So I was like, cool. If I follow in his footsteps, then I have something to look forward to. So that's kind of what I've been working towards.
Well, and if you look at it, like people who become seasoned in their field usually become best when they're older, like in business, you have to kind of work your way up the ladder and then you become the top dog for a while. So yeah, I'm always surprised. And I know that it's because of the fast pace of things and the hard hitting nature of wrestling that people are, broken down younger, but like you said, you're still moving around just fine and stuff.
Right, yeah, and it just depends on person to person. And wrestling gives you a lot of leeway. Like I'm sure in the NFL it would be completely different, depending on what position you if you're a quarterback, your life expectancy, your career expectancy will be much longer. Which is also fascinating because everyone considers me as a high flyer. I don't think I'm a high flyer. I do one or two cool high spots here.
You don't consider yourself like a high flying wrestler at all?
I mean, maybe like I'm more of a hybrid style. Like I don't know, like my new style is kind of like hybrid. I mean, I still whip out the 450 and a bunch of dives and high flying stuff, but I consider myself like a strong style technical wrestler more than anything.
Fair enough. But probably more so from the past stuff that people recognize you right because of the 450 and all that. Right.
And usually those guys' careers don't last very long, so that's another reason I kind of like change it up and because I want to try and go for as long as possible.
I feel like a lot of the guys that were in WWE around your time are kind of still doing it, really. I mean, a lot of the Nexus guys are still doing it.
Yep.
Not all of them, obviously, but it's funny. I didn't even realize I was reading an interview that you did recently, and you were saying that the Nexus thing was at Madison Square Garden, and I didn't even put that together that was at Madison Square Garden.
The initial thing? No, the initial thing wasn't. This was like a couple of weeks after. Like,
okay, that's what it was.
Yeah. This is when the storyline was hot. Like it was like in the peak of the storyline. Like in Madison Square Garden, if you know Madison Square Garden, like there's only one way in. They actually snuck us in an ambulance that day, so no one would see us coming. So yeah, the reaction we got when we came out was huge.
Do you always, when you had to do stuff like that, did you find it kind of ridiculous that you had to be snuck in to that degree?
But it was awesome. I was like, this is something really cool. Like, in wrestling, it's really hard to come up with something different, something unique. Like everything's been done before. Everything's kind of like just a recycled storyline. But like at the time, that was really cool. Like it was, it was like, wow, this is something different. And like, You know, I wish it ran a little bit longer, but whatever.
I'm always kind of surprised that there isn't more like Nexus reunion type stuff anywhere, that people aren't ever trying to kind of like
right?
doing indie events or anything like that. You rarely see Nexus. I mean, Nexus was popping for a while.
There was a guy in England who does like talking like these Q&A tours. I don't know if you've seen Jim Ross and like all those guys, and then they were trying to get like a Nexus thing together, but it was just so hard to get all the guys together at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, if you got like some of them, it would be cool. Like if it was you, Barrett, Ryback. I'm trying to think, like, well, because Heath Slater's still there. Sure, Tarver would be available. Like, you could totally do something like that.
Fred Russell,
he would be available. Dude, I would love to see that. You guys got to make that happen. What's his name? The guy who does that. It's the Inside the Ropes guys, right?
Yeah.
I forget his name though. But
we did do it was me, Darren Young, and Tarver. We did the trios tournament.
I remember that.
Shikara. That was actually cool because that was a bucket list in wrestling for me to do the Shikara, the trios tournament.
You said another bucket list in that article was New Japan to do the Tokyo Dome.
Yes.
Do you think that that's something you foresee happening in this year with Ring of Honor?
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Like even before WWE, that was my goal. And you know, growing up in South Africa, a third world country, I had a third world passport. It was really hard for me to get anywhere else. Like, you know, I tried to get into New Japan like when I broke in, 97. So 99, 2001, that's when I was really trying really hard to get overseas, and I just couldn't get anywhere. Ended up going to Europe, got kicked out after 5 years.
Why'd you get out?
So, like I said, third world country passport, you can only get like a certain visa. I think it was like a working holiday visa or something. And I ended up working in the UK, traveling. While traveling, I ended up getting a student visa, switched onto the student visa, which was only for a year. And then I switched onto another year visa gimmick, you know. and then after 5 years, they're like, hang on, how many visas have you had? So I got kicked back to South Africa. And then luckily the South African company got a TV deal. So for 3 years, like solid to the day, actually on TV, and then luckily I got picked up by WWE. But coming back to that, like New Japan was always my goal before that. But like obviously I wasn't gonna say no to a WWE deal.
Of course not, and that'll help you get there eventually, anyways.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
You mentioned your dad being a wrestler, and I know that you wrestled there, like you were saying on TV. What's the South African scene like? Like, is it pop? Like, because some of the other international scenes are all kind of starting to blow up a little, like Australia, stuff like that.
Yep. So. Let me take you through the history. So in the 80s, early 90s, South Africa was an unofficial territory. Not many people know this. You know, like if you ask guys like Regal, Fit Finlay, Drew McDonald, those guys used to come stay there for like a year at a time.
Okay.
Actually, one of Undertaker's very first matches was in South Africa.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I was a kid, I saw Hogan job to our champion. I saw Andre the Giant come job to our champion.
Really?
Because there was no like internet or dirt sheets or YouTube back then, so no one knows of this stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
Wait, what was the guy who beat Hogan that you saw?
His name's Jan Wilkins. He was like the South Africa super heavyweight champion for years.
Crazy. Is he the same one that beat Andre too?
Yep, same guy.
That's crazy.
Same guy. Yep.
Is he still alive?
He might be, but he's like old. He lives on a farm in like the middle of nowhere. He wants nothing to do with like wrestling, pro wrestling, or anything like that. But like, he was a legend. Like,
that's
back
crazy.
Then. If you ask any South African the name Jan Wilkins, any South African over the age of 30, by the way, and they'll know that name.
Rodriguez out there.
Yeah, he was like as big as Hogan. He was a household name in South Africa. Yeah, and
that's crazy that there was someone that was that big that beat names like that you just don't even hear about.
Yeah, but I mean, it happened all the time in the NWA too. Like you hear of stories of like, well, now you hear it, like Ric Flair going to like Puerto Rico or like where was it, like Korea or something, dropping the title and then winning it back the next day. Like, but it was never like documented, right? It was never in the record book. So I mean, that stuff happened all the time when it was still like territories. And then so like later in the 90s, my dad was a promoter, and my dad died in 99, and wrestling kind of just died. And everyone expected me to take over the company, but I was 18 at the time, so I was like, I want to be a wrestler. I don't want to be a promoter. Like, so I just kind of packed my bags, skipped the country, went to England, which my family, they were so mad at me, all my friends, everyone, like wrestling just kind of crashed.
Crazy.
A couple of companies started up here and there.
That's a big thing to have fall on your back at such a young age.
Yeah. And I'm in a couple of companies, a couple of guys trying to start it back up, and it's like there's some wrestling back home right now, nothing big. I mean, there's a couple of guys who've done a couple of big shows in the last few years, like 1 or 2 big shows a year, that's it. Maybe 10 shows in total a year.
Crazy.
I'm actually trying to set something up right now. I'm trying to set something up there because I feel like the wrestling in South Africa is big, and like I get kids on Instagram and Facebook asking me daily, like, where can I train? Where can I go? So I want to open a couple of wrestling schools in the big cities in South Africa, maybe do 2, 3, 4 big shows a year, and then, like, hopefully we can grow it back into what it was, especially now, because wrestling's booming worldwide. Like you said, Australia's booming, England is booming, everywhere.
China's booming.
China,
All
all these weird countries. Even I got a booking in Chile, and then apparently there it's booming.
Crazy.
Yeah, like there's all these weird countries that you never would think of, like, because wrestling is a universal language.
Yes.
You think about it. So like in Africa, the biggest wrestling shows were actually, remember WWE Superstars and main event shows like that, where there's no like promos, like, because people don't understand the Raw and the SmackDown 30-minute opening promos, but people understand wrestling, because wrestling is a universal language, so like stuff like that, those shows are huge in Africa, but people are catching up onto the whole wrestling culture.
So do you think, you would like to start schools out there,
Eventually.
So you would kind of, that's kind of cool, full circle, that you'd come back to that after all this time. Because, I mean, I feel like, and I don't know anything about your dad personally or anything, but I feel like, I mean, he started it when he was older, right? I mean, he was wrestler first, right? And then he started promoting. So it's kind of like the same lineage.
Yeah, funny story how he got into it, actually. So he was a legit Greco-Roman wrestler. He was going to go to the Olympic Games in 1981. I think it was 81 or 82, whenever the Olympic Games was. That's when I was born. And South Africa was boycotted from all international sports. So he didn't get to go to the Olympic Games. And the Russian guy that won the gold medal, my dad beat him at the World Games. So like to him that stung, and that was his passion. So like that was back then when it was really hard to get into pro wrestling, and I guess all the pro wrestlers approached him and they're like, yo, you should come try this, and he's like but like eventually he got into it, he started liking it, and back then one of the main promoters, Willie Cooney, I don't know if you know this name, if you know anything about history, but do you know the Simpson brothers from Texas from the 80s?
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, but anyway, they were the first 2 South Africans to ever make it. Their dad ran the main territory in South Africa. My dad took over from him.
Okay.
And then, he started a sports promotions, wrestling, kickboxing, MMA company. He also managed a couple of like bands, like acts and stuff like that. Like even a circus, like just the massive company, which was at the time it was like the 5th biggest company in the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's why it was.
That's why everyone was so mad at you when you left.
It just crashed.
Yeah, no, that's. But I mean, you were only 18. Like that's a lot, especially if it was that big of a company at the time. Like that's a lot to take on.
That's a lot of pressure.
Especially if you have like things you want to do. Like you wanted to.
Totally, I wanted to be a wrestler. This is what I've always wanted to do. Ever since I was 8 years old, this is what I've always wanted to do. Obviously, I can't do it forever, so now I'm thinking like maybe I will help out some kids too. And obviously I'm not going to move back to South Africa. Maybe I'll go live there for 6 months, come back to the US for 6 months. Because I have a bunch of businesses here too, and maybe I'll be back and forth. Who knows? I don't know. Let's see what happens. I do want to help out some kids back home and maybe run some shows, because wrestling in South Africa, there's a big market for it for sure.
Yeah, and if it brings the next you, like that's only a good thing, you know? I mean, if no one's really helping to like manifest that talent right now, I mean, that's something that's needed. I was watching. Well, I wasn't watching. I was reading about that, that legendary Bret Hart versus Tom McGee match, and how no one's ever seen it or whoever. And you see how like the matches that Tom McGee was in, he wasn't a very good wrestler. But I was thinking while I was looking, I was like, man, he really did have a good look. If there had been a thing like a PC where he could like go and train every day and like put in the time and get taught by the best minds in wrestling, like that would be super helpful back then. And I always think like it's crazy how many people were probably just lost in time because they just didn't have proper training like that.
Oh yeah, and I've seen it happen too. Like just in FCW, the developmental territory, like so many guys who should have and could have been the next John Cena, it just didn't happen.
Is there anyone that instantly comes to mind when you say that?
There was a guy named Kyle Rasmussen, and like he had the look, he had, like he picked it up quickly. He was a football player, so like a lot of people gave him heat for that, and like, but like like I thought he had it. Like a lot of people didn't think so, just because they didn't like him personally. And his friend too. He's a pro bodybuilder. He's actually the tallest bodybuilder in the world right now. Aaron Reed, who he lives out here in Venice right now. Actually trains people, but he's a fantastic talent. I thought he definitely had the it factor.
Does it trip you out to see the PC and like the NXT, what it's become from what you were like there in the beginning? Does it trip you out to see that?
It does, and it's cool. I dig it. Like it's NXT is its own brand. It's not so much a developmental territory or a farm league. It's like its own brand, which I think it's fantastic. Like I love the brand. I love NXT right now. I had an opportunity to go back there actually, but I chose ROH over that.
Which is honestly, I think you made the right call there. Like I there's so many people down at the Performance Center. Like it's so easy to get lost in that shuffle of people. And I think with ROH, you can kind of be showcased in a much better fashion, and it's a little more, I guess, creatively freeing, I guess, right?
Exactly. That was the main thing for me, like schedule-wise, and then creative freedom. Because, like, I mean, wrestling is an art, and like I feel like I love WWE, by the way. I'm not knocking anything or anyone there, but like, it's like you're kind of like handcuffed in a way. Like obviously, depending on who you are and how high up on the card you are, you have a little bit of freedom. But you can always be told what to do by a suit and stuff like that, and that's cool. That's fine for some people, and you make a lot of money. And if you have a family, that's the thing you should do. But like, if you're a true artist, like you want to just do your thing, like you want to show people what you can do.
You got that gypsy lifestyle in you, where you just want to be yourself and do your thing. Yeah, I completely understand that. And speaking of Ring of Honor, before we head out here, Madison Square Garden. Are you pumped to go back to Madison Square Garden? When's the last time you wrestled there?
I am. Wow, I don't even remember.
It's probably been a while, right?
It's been a while. It's probably been like 4 or 5 years, maybe even longer. I don't even know. Like, I forget. Like, I've done a couple of shows with WWE there. The very first one, probably that's the only one that stands out in my mind. It was the Nexus running we did. Yeah, that's the only one that I can like remember. Like, my whole WWE thing was just a blur, because like it was just so many shows. My first year, I think I did like close to 300 shows the first year on the road. It's
so
just
many.
Constantly. I slept in my own bed like one night a week, and that's what a lot of people don't get. It's not so much the wrestling; it's the actual traveling that beats you up.
I couldn't imagine traveling like that. I don't even like traveling on vacation for fun. I couldn't imagine every day traveling, being in a different hotel room every night.
Right.
Oh, that sounds like not having my DVR sounds like torture, in my opinion.
It's fun if you don't have a family or anyone to come home to, but like for some of the guys with families and kids, that's really hard for them, man. For me, I was just a kid living my dream,
Yeah, you were like in your 20s partying.
Yeah, partying every day, wrestling every day, getting paid to play with my friends.
Is there something special do you feel about, like, do you feel like there's a special feeling wrestling at the Garden, or being at the Garden? Is there something kind of like unique about it, do you feel?
Oh yeah, like in anything, not even wrestling, like anything at the Garden is pretty special, right? Because it's Madison Square Garden. It's got so much history, and like if for wrestling, there's so many great events, matches have happened there. Like just being there, even just like a live event, like a non-televised WWE event, was amazing. Like I can actually remember. Look, I'm getting goosebumps. Like I can remember like running in and the Rumble for the first time, and like I remember getting a paycheck too. I was like, wow, this is what I get for Madison Square Garden. This is great.
Wait, you guys had bigger paychecks for the Madison Square Garden shows?
Oh yeah, for live events you get way bigger paychecks.
Why?
Anything non-televised, I don't know, because maybe they have to pay for the production and like the setup and everything.
Crazy.
But, like,
I didn't know that. That's
non-televised shows, yeah, you get way more money.
I definitely didn't know that. Yeah. That's interesting to know. I didn't know that. What was it? Yeah, I've only been to one show at Madison Square Garden, and it was the Hall of Fame ceremony, and it was like I was literally like, there's the wall. I was like touching the last row there. So I'm excited to see an actual wrestling show at a decent length.
Cool. You're gonna be there? You're gonna be there?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm excited, man. That should be fun.
Well, on that note, you guys should also make sure you watch. It's G1 Supercard. It's on April 6th. It's available on pretty much all platforms. The Honor Club, Fight. It's available everywhere. It's very easy to find. Make sure you watch it. He's going to be in the Honor Rumble. There's a bunch of other awesome matches that are going to be on the card. I'm going to be there. I'm very excited to check it out. PJ, where can people find everything you're doing?
PJBlack.com. Everything's on there. All my links to my social medias, to my YouTube channel. You can get some cool merch on there.
And some keto cooking, hopefully, soon.
Yeah, I'm starting some keto recipes on there slowly. I do have a fitness blog and a wrestling blog on my website too. But I'm very, very active on Instagram. But you can get the links on pjblack.com.
Thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, man.
All right, we're done here. Officially tapping out. Until next time, stay out of the dirt and keep your eye on the sheet.
ProWrestlingSheet.com.